Hello viewers, welcome back to another episode. Sorry it's been so long since my last teardown, but what with all the Quantel stuff going on and a couple of other projects and being outbid on several items on eBay, it's taken a while to pick up something worthy of a teardown, and this is it. So we have here a 1998 vintage Kodak Image Station 440 CF. So going from what I've read in the manual, this is very squarely aimed at life sciences and things like that. This would originally have had a PC attached to it with all the software on to actually make it work. So what actually is it? Okay, it's a device for taking pictures of samples that you place on a platen here. So presumably these are like biological samples, things that are like on sheets or part of gels and various things get put on here. And there's three modes of operation on this. You can either put the sample there and leave the lid open, and the ambient light will go through the sample and then be imaged by a camera down in part of the box. So that's transmitted. There is also another mode, which is where you have the sample on here, you close the lid, and you have two large ultraviolet lamps which light the sample from underneath, and that causes particular dyes and things to fluoresce, and then that is picked up by the camera. And then the third imaging method is no illumination with the lid closed for luminescent samples. So stuff that actually generates its own light, so you don't actually need to illuminate it. So this can be placed in here with no light, and the camera picks up what is emitted from the whatever the sample is. So reading through the manual, it does give a little bit of information about how this actually works. It's using a CCD. Probably, I'm going to guess, it's very, very similar to a TV camera CCD, although it does seem to be slightly higher spec than you would normally expect. Details here say it's a thermo-electrically cooled CCD with a resolution of 752 by 582 pixels. And data is captured at 12 bits. So yeah, it's a little bit higher spec than what you'd normally find in a video camera. But it'd be certainly interesting to see that in a little bit of detail. The actual capture software allows you to do sort of very quick samples, like almost at video frame rates, or you can actually do long exposures over about up to an hour, I think the manual said. So that's probably why they've got the CCD cooled with a thermoelectric cooler, so you can get really low noise and get a really, really good signal to noise ratio. Our other little details here are the imaging area. You can just see there we've got a glass window there. The digital camera has a 6x zoom lens that will capture images from 25 by 20 centimeters to 4.2 by 3.3 centimeters. So obviously when it's fully zoomed in, it'll just be presumably right in the center. There'll be a 4.2 by 3.3 centimeter sample area. And those measurements work out to, at its widest opening, that's 350 microns per pixel, and at full zoom it works out to 58 microns per pixel. Right, let's have a quick look around this. So yeah, you can see it's a pretty large box for what it's actually doing. We've got two chambers here, well not two, but I know there is another chamber in the back there. So we've got a UV lamp presumably in this area here, and then one right down at the back down there. We have the lid. It all seems to be made out of aluminium, so it's not that heavy, thankfully. So we've got the sample area at the top, and we have a little access door here, which gives you access to the CCD camera module, the lens and everything, and there is also a filter wheel in this, which is manually adjusted, which has various built-in filters which just move in front of the lens to filter out particular wavelengths. We've got a little chart which has 5 settings. 0 is completely open, no filter. and then we have 5 actual filters. So we've got a couple of band pass and then some high pass filters there as well, with the wavelengths written on. So in this little access hatch you can change the actual settings of the lens, so it's all a completely manual operation. You've got focus, zoom and the aperture ring, so it's all just manually adjusted. Presumably when the PC software is actually running, you have a live video feed, so you can actually see it on screen and actually get the focus right. Also in here there is a small little access panel which just attaches with some small magnets, which allows you access to the filter wheel, so you can actually change these filters for different wavelengths. The adjustment knob here is completely mechanical. It's just got a cable here which just winds the filter round, so all pretty basic stuff. So if I just go handheld, I can just show you the top of this. So there's not really anything here apart from the glass. Apparently this is all watertight, so you can actually put liquid samples on here. So in there you can see there's a mirror down there which is pointing that way into the camera lens. You can see the lens just down there, and if I turn the filter wheel, you can see the different colour gels go past. Obviously they don't look particularly optically perfect now, do they? So they're obviously completely screwed, and you can see there's a piece of metal just covering up the lens to stop any light washing down into the lens directly. And over in the back you should just be able to see a silver area, which is where the UV lights are. So as you can see from these 2 pages that I've taken from the manual, we have the 3 sort of modes of operation. We have the transmission mode there with the lid open, the light diffuser, which has obviously gone missing, the actual sample, and then the mirror underneath it. And then the next one is the UV illumination mode, so the sample is placed on the top, lid closed, and then you can see the UV comes up at about 45 degrees and then down onto the mirror and then into the lens. And then finally we've got exactly the same setup but without the lights on, so any luminescent light coming off the sample would just hit the mirror and then go straight into the lens. Right, so given that really in sort of this half of it there's basically just a mirror and a couple of lights, don't think there's really anything to see, and probably not really worth taking it apart on camera for you, because there's not really going to be much there anyway. The only thing of note will probably be the mirror, which looks like it is a front coated mirror, so it's probably quite a nice mirror. So I'll probably extract that out at some point once I've finished. So I think what I will do is we'll take out all the bits that are in here, including the camera assembly and stuff, because that's really the important bit. So before we do that, I'll just spin this round just so you can see the back. Yeah. So all we have on the back is literally just an IC power input. We've got a switch circuit breaker thing, and we have a port which connects to the PC. I believe the PC has a PCI card in it, which actually does the interface. And on this side we have an access panel and the large heatsink, presumably to dissipate all the heat from the thermoelectric cooler. So looks like these are Torx, so we'll just take that cover off. Yes, so there's not a huge amount to see in there. We've got a cable connecting the camera to the rear port. We've got a box, which is just where the mains comes in, so I guess that's just a switch, mains wiring and stuff that goes off to the UV lights. And we've got a lens. Okay, let's turn the brightness down there for you a little bit. Yeah, we've got a C-mount lens. What is that, spare or something? No idea. there's no make on it. Zoom lens 18 to 108 at 2.5. Yeah, there's no make at all on it. Looks Japanese though. Yeah, oh, that's quite handy. Yes, and we've got 4 large Allen bolts here, quite clearly holding in the stronger to undo that. There's the camera assembly. Right, let me move the big box out of the way and we'll have a close look at this. Right, we've got quite a nice looking camera assembly, to be honest. We've got a big steel mounting plate, a lovely machined aluminium body, the mount on the front, the lens of course, which is a Computar TV zoom lens. It's f1.2 and it zooms from 12.5 to 75 millimeters. We do have a model number at the top. That is called IS440. I presume that's a serial number 25028. I think I did read in the user guide that every single camera is profiled and you get a calibration map that you have to use with the software. So they do profile every single camera. So I'm guessing they wouldn't have been cheap. It'd be interesting to see what type of CCD it is, whether it's one of Kodak's own custom ones, because Kodak were very well known for research into CCDs, so that'd be interesting. We've got a couple of ports here on the side, the D port that went out to the back, and then we have what suspiciously looks like an S-video. So I wonder whether that might actually be just a standard video output. We'll have to see. Other than that, there's nothing else doing. Got 3 holes in the top here. They might be LEDs. Not sure. Right, let's take the bracket off and take the lens off, and then we'll see about taking that big heatsink off the back. I tell you what, I'll leave the bracket on there. Right, the lens doesn't seem to want to come off either. It's extremely tight on there. I can't seem to get it undone, so I'll just leave it on. So it's just a case of removing that big heatsink. Oh, that's nice. No schmoo. So quite clearly the main heat sinking is actually this big block of aluminium, and then this just bolts to it to add a little bit extra. Hello, well, a lot has happened since that last clip. It's actually the next day. After I took the back off, I started wondering whether I might be able to have a play around with this and actually get some live video out of it. So I started spending a bit of time trying to figure out what bits do what, and the possibility of trying to get some kind of analog video signal out of it. But unfortunately, after several hours work, I think I've come to the conclusion that there is no analog video. I thought that might have been used for some kind of preview mode or something like that. I think it's all completely digital, and the link between the camera and the PCI card, which sits in the PC, is completely a serial digital link. I also thought that connector on the side there, which looks suspiciously like S-video, it isn't. It just has the main power supply rails on it, so that is definitely not a video output port. So unfortunately, I don't think there's really anything I'm going to be able to do with this without actually having that PCI card. And you know, at the end of the day, it's not a particularly high resolution camera, and probably the camera on my phone is probably far better than it anyway. So it's not really worth the time to look into it, and I have so many other projects on the go anyway, so I figured I would just take this completely to pieces and do a full teardown on it. Right, so if I just get it under the camera here for you to see, I can run through some of the parts that are actually in this camera. We have the external connector over the back there, that's a 15-way D, and we have this what looks to be like a S-video connector, which is a standard 4-pin DIN, mini DIN connector over there. There's several places where these can mount, so there's another a copy of that port just there, and over on the side here, and 2 copies of this port as well, so obviously they can change the orientation of the output ports. We've got 3 LEDs up at the top here, red, amber and green. I'm not sure what those actually do, obviously without having any instructions or being able to power it up. No idea, I guess the green one's probably power. So on here we have a couple of capacitors and inductors. We've got some power that probably comes in over this port and then is distributed into the rest of the circuit. There is actually separate power lines for these 2 PLDs just here that are separate from the analog or the more analog stuff for driving the CCD. Over on here we have a Max 488 RS422 driver, so probably there might be some kind of communication link between this camera and the PC, possibly for monitoring or stuff. Not entirely sure, or changing the actual refresh rate of the CCD potentially. These PLDs are actually Altera EPM 7064s, so it's fairly small little unit there. That one, I suspect this one does more of the communication between the PC and the camera over this link here. The other one seems to be used for the actual video. So there's circuit on here. We've got a number of voltage regulators. We've got a 78L05. I think there's another one somewhere around here. 78L06. We've got an LM337, another 337 somewhere else. Where is it? I can't see where it's gone now. Just there. Various other bits and bobs for driving the CCD. The analog to digital converter is an AD9807 by Analog Devices. That's a 12-bit analog to digital converter. Can't remember what the bit rate is off the top of my head. This is another PLD, exactly the same as that one, but obviously running a different program. We can see here the traces coming off the ADC running into that, so this obviously processes the actual digital data and turns it into, as I said, what I suspect is a serial data stream, which is then sent over to the PC. And if I zoom in a little bit here, we can also see these through-hole pins. We've got a row up there and another one just there, which are clearly the CCD mounted onto the other side of the PCB. And there is 2 additional through-hole pins which come through from the other side, just there and there. And I suspect that is for the connections to the thermo-electric cooler. Okay, the next step is to try and remove this lens. Now, it was pretty tight on there, but I suspect when I was trying to take it off, it wanted to rotate, which is a bit odd. I'll just wonder whether this ring here is actually some kind of adapter, or there's something that, I don't know. So I'm just going to try separating this. Yeah, that's definitely got loose. There we go. I'm not sure if that is actually meant to do that properly. I suspect that is probably part of the lens that I've just taken apart, but that is obviously just an adapter. So yeah, this aluminium ring here just screws in into this mount here, so I suspect this bit is just jammed in here. Not quite sure how that would come out now, because I can't really get a grip on it. But it does mean I can take off this mount a little bit easier now. Right, that's the mount off. There is actually a small filter in there. There is definitely a colour to it, so it's definitely doing some filtering. It might be the infrared filter, actually, thinking about it, because it doesn't look like there's anything actually on the CCD, so I think that's the infrared cut filter. And it would also mean that this section is actually completely sealed as well. So yeah, we've got a rubber O-ring on here, which obviously just seals inside here, just to keep this completely sealed from the atmosphere, because obviously if this is getting chilled and cooled, then you don't want any moisture in here, because it would all just condense on the actual CCD, so that would all be sealed. And just one little detail that I've just spotted there, there is actually a metal shim in here. Presumably they just needed to very, very finely adjust the distance between the lens and the CCD to get the focus right. I can't remember, there is a term for it, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. And there we have the CCD. So we've got a ceramic package, glass front, obviously. Looks like it's actually in a socket, so I might try prizing that out. There's a couple of wires here. Those will be for the thermoelectric cooler. That will be mounted underneath, so presumably it's just cooling the entire PCB. So that's just underneath there. So let's just try removing that CCD out. Let's just see whether it is really in a socket. Yep. Right, there we are. So we can see where the thermoelectric cooler attaches to the back of the actual camera. We've got a little pad there. So let's try and see what this CCD actually is. I think this is going to be just something attached to the back. Yeah, so I think we just got a little copper heat spreader thing going on here. So if I just move that off. Yep, so we can see there that is a Sony ICX083AL, and just looking at the data sheet on that, it is indeed just a standard diagonal 11mm CCD image sensor for CCIR black and white video cameras. Blah blah blah, high sensitivity and low dark current achieved through the adoption of HAD hole accumulation diode sensors. And if we have a quick look at the PCB on here, you can see the ceramic top of the thermoelectric cooler, and then there is a nice little cutout on the PCB here, and there's obviously a little thermal sensor. It's labelled at R3, so probably just a basic thermistor. So really nice looking CCD there in a gold ceramic package. That's perfect because I've actually been looking for one for my gold ceramics collection. So that can take pride of place in there. Right, I don't think there's much more to see now. That really did seem to be pretty much a video camera in a box. So that's pretty much it. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I will see you on the next video. Bye for now.